Chapter 21. That was it. I knew Shelby had figured it out and was going to make Emerson confess. She'd find Daisy, and the Lacys would get to be a family again. And I couldn't wait to watch it all unfold, and just in time for me to catch a game with Zane. "What can I do to help?" Emerson sat down at the head of the long table. Either he was a really good actor or he was oblivious of what Shelby had up her sleeve. Shelby pulled up a chair right next to him, preparing for her interrogation. "First, can you explain to me why you lied to the Lacys about where you were the last few days?" Emerson furrowed his eyebrows. "I don't know what you're talking about. I was tending to a very sick aunt. How dare you? You were on an American Airlines flight en route to LaGuardia Airport when the Lacys were trying to get a hold of you. You missed your connection in Dallas because your flight from Cozumel was delayed due to weather. That's why you didn't pick up your cell phone. You had planned to be back by morning, and they would have been none the wiser." The color drained from Emerson's face, save for his still sunburned nose. "I wasn't—" His lips kept moving, but it appeared that he had lost his voice, or his nerve, probably both. "Let's skip the charade where you pretend that I'm wrong and get down to business. Who took Daisy?" "Wait," I cried out. "You mean he didn't do it?" Shelby looked disappointed in me. "Of course not, Watson. He was on a plane when the crime occurred. That's about as solid an alibi as they come. But that doesn't mean he didn't have an accomplice." "No, I was positive the trainer did it. But the only other real lead we had was Zareen, and she didn't do it." I let out a little moan before slumping over the chair nearest to Shelby. "It's his first case," Shelby explained to a confused Emerson. "Listen," Emerson said slowly, as if he knew that every word out of his mouth could be used against him. "I had nothing to do with the disappearance of Daisy. I adore that dog. I've been running myself ragged, posting flyers, and talking to anybody who can help." "Which is exactly what a guilty person would do," Shelby replied. "Now, let me ask you again. Why did you lie to the Lacys about where you were?" Emerson looked at the door, probably planning an escape. He then leaned forward and placed his head in his hands. "They would have been upset at me for leaving so close to a show, even though I knew I'd be back in plenty of time. It was sort of a last-minute vacation. I got a deal online for this trip. As you can imagine, I don't make a ton of money. I wanted to do something nice for my new girlfriend." "So wouldn't rigging the competition get you a ton of money?" Shelby fired back. "What?" His face was scrunched up, and I kind of felt bad for the guy. Here he was, working for a very wealthy family, and the only way he could afford a vacation was to scour the internet for deals. It must have been hard to keep up with the Lacys. "I'd never hurt Daisy or any dog. I love what I do. It doesn't give me a lot of free time, but I would never, and I mean never, do anything to Daisy." "You have all the elements of someone who is guilty. Motive, keys to the apartment. You were in the apartment yesterday and could have taken the food. Am I correct?" Shelby asked, but I was fairly certain that was a rhetorical question, because everybody in the room already knew she was right. "I have keys because I walk the dogs during the day when the girls are at school. No one would—" It was as if a light had turned on over his head. "What?" Shelby leaned forward so she was only inches away from him. "What are you thinking? You know something." He shook his head. "It's probably nothing. Let me be the judge of that." "Well, the only other people who have access to the apartment are the staff and the family." "Correct. Right before I left, I was working with Roxy. That dog has really been challenging. I've never experienced such a stubborn animal. It's amazing such a tiny dog can make so much noise." So far, his story checked out. "Zareen came up to me and said she wanted to start entering her in competitions. I advised her against it. At this stage, Roxy isn't ready. One bark at a judge, and it's over." "And?" Shelby prodded him, getting as impatient as I was to find out what he knew. "Now listen, Zareen's a good girl, but she's going through a rough time. She got upset and stormed out of the room, but the last thing she said to me was, 'I wish someone would take me away from this family, or at least get rid of that goody two-shoes dog.'" "No!" I gasped. "There's no way Zareen did it. She told me earlier, and well, I believed her." "I did, didn't I?" Shelby turned her attention back to Emerson. How peculiar that this is the first time you're bringing this up. I was too preoccupied with my vacation, and I didn't really think of it at the time. Zareen is prone to outbursts, so I simply chalked it up to that. Then, when I returned, I was so focused on finding Daisy, it didn't even occur to me until now. A rattling came from the dining room door. "Why is the door locked?" Tamara asked on the other side as she began pounding on it. "Shelby, open up!" Shelby strode over to the door and opened it. On the other side, Tamara held up a piece of clear glass. "We have another clue."